Good evening and welcome back to the Win-Win Show. On this show, we bring you winners every week, men and women who by virtue of their fame and success have brought magic to their calling. This week, I bring you a guru, a master, the musician who conquered the West as way back as in the 60s when the Beatles were his pupils and the rich and the famous swore by him, Pandit Ravi Shankar, a legend in his lifetime. Ravi Shankar spends most of his time in California today, teaching, performing, marketing the mystique of the mystic East. But the man who once played with Yehudi Menuhin and Andre Previn scored music for Satyajit Ray's famous Pothir Pachali, Charlie and Chapakwadik, and set Iqbal Sare Jahan Se Achha to music, is today a lonely man and in many ways an unhappy man. How does a celebrity of such global stature cope with the dilemma of aging and a changing world where fashions in music are as fickle as a Yves Saint Laurent hemline? Let's ask him. Let's find out.
Ravi Shankar was born on 7th of April 1920 in Varanasi. His father, a Bengali Brahmin from the village of Kalia in Jessore district of what is now Bangladesh, was a diwan in the court of the Maharaja of Jhalawar. A great pandit in Sanskrit and philosophy, he also learned the Dhrupad from Mithai Lal, the famous bean player. When he left Jhalawar finally, the family got a pension and he decided to start practicing law in London. He took along his eldest son, Uday Shankar, with him to study painting at the Royal School of Art. The other sons, Rajendra, Devendra and Bhupendra and Ravi Shankar himself, stayed back at Varanasi with their musically inclined mother. Soon they had formed a small chamber orchestra at home. When he was 9, a friend of his brother Rajendra taught Ravi Shankar a number of Bengali songs written by Rabindranath Tagore. There was no karaoke then. Young Ravi Shankar sang along with the humble gramophone and then finally started to perform in small public gatherings. Meanwhile, Uday Shankar came back with a degree in art, but more interested in dancing. Anna Pavlova had already invited him to help her produce 2 ballets in Europe. By 1930, at 10, Ravi Shankar was off to Paris by sea to launch his performing career as part of brother Uday Shankar's troupe.
Panditji, there are 2 Ravi Shankars. Ravi Shankar, the musician, and Ravi Shankar, the creator, the composer. Do you see a contradiction between these roles at times?
I don't, but many of the listeners have been maybe seeing it or mixing up these 2 different identities. As a musician or as a performer, and I'm a purist and orthodox as far as sitar performance is concerned. But as a composer, I'm never frightened to experiment. Since last 45 years I've been doing it.
But you've drawn a lot of flack for that at various times.
Definitely, especially in India. It's only since last 5-6 years that people have become a little more knowledgeable or conscious of the creative music.
But much of your experimentation has been in the area of fusion between East and West.
Not necessarily, no. This fusion word bothers me a little because it has been overplayed and used by everyone. I have never tried to mix the music. You know, my intention has been always to take the essence of, or the sound and the range and the whole quality of a symphony orchestra, for instance.
But you've been your own experiments with the fusion of East and West in music have ceased for some time now.
It has not ceased. I do whatever I feel like doing when I'm, problem is that you have to be commissioned also, to do certain. Sometimes I do it on my own, like my latest, if you have heard, what I've done in collaboration with Philip Glass, known as Passages.
In the 60s and 70s, the Western world almost went crazy over Indian classical music and went crazy over you. What went wrong that in later years, in later decades, that this has kind of tapered off?
What happened in the mid-60s when George Harrison, one of the Beatles, became my student? That's what did. It was everything happened today. That was the period of Vietnam coming into picture, the hippies, the drug culture, the beautiful people, flower children, all that. And because George became my student, I was rediscovered by the young generation. That's where the children immediately, came rushing to me. I became like a superstar, a cult guru, and all that sort of thing. But, the whole strange thing is that I was from very beginning telling these kids to stop smoking, to behave properly. I was saying that our music is something very traditional, very spiritual. You have to listen with a certain amount of respect. For instance, when you go to listen to Bach or Beethoven or Mozart, you don't misbehave like that. You don't make it out in the public or, smoke hash and, yeah. So that's what I was doing all the time. Many places I walked out with the sitar when I saw that they were beyond control. But funny thing that in India, all the feedback was something else, that Ravi Shankar has gone completely commercialized, Americanized, jazzifying his music. He has become a Beatle, they were saying. If they say I've become a hippie, that meant, but becoming a Beatle didn't make sense. Anyway, the same people who were condemning me at that time, that I'm not pure, prostituting Indian music and things like that, commercializing. They are all, if you ask where is such and such, he's in Denmark or he's Sweden or he's in States. So I'm glad about that. I'm very happy that they have got this platform ready for them.
Do you see a greater degree of knowledge about music creeping into Indian listening?
Yes, considerably. But it is only in the large cities. Of course, South is different because there's really much more awareness, understanding for. Because of the past, music was not imprisoned in the palaces. There it was the temple which was the venue. So people had more contact. But in North, excepting these few large cities, where also you can count the listeners as maybe 1,000, 2,000 who are really the hardcore listeners. But rest of the place, I tell you, is not at all. You see, when I was a member of parliament in Rajya Sabha till last May, I brought this issue, and in my first maiden speech I said about this, that we should really start training music as a compulsory thing from childhood, from the kindergarten stage, like they do awareness for pitch and beats through nursery rhymes. To make them aware, it's not that they have to be forced classical music, but to be on correct beat or be on correct sur, pitch. That awareness is very much lacking.
Agreed to go to Parliament.
I didn't agree. It was to me, it was, actually I said no in the beginning, and I was skeptical because I knew that I couldn't attend these sessions, being traveling all the time. Actually, voting time they would insist that to pass some bill, for instance. That was the only time they requested us to be there.
What is the dominant rasa of your work as you see it?
I would say that Shanta, that is tranquility, or you can say peace. Then, of course, Karuna rasa. Karuna, not in the sense that someone has died or something, but it is the pain of trying to go high into sublime area and you feel pain that you cannot reach it. It's like trying to touch God, but you feel He's there. Almost you get a glimpse, but then it's gone. So that is a pain that is really Karuna rasa. And then, of course, love. Love in all its different form, from the sublime love to very physical love. All that is part of our selves and as well as our art form.
What is the favorite rag that you enjoy playing?
Ragas like Yaman Kalyan, for instance, Manj Khamaj, or Bhairav, Miyan Ki Todi. Few ragas that really I'll never get tired of.
And among the rags that you have created yourself?
Oh, so many.
Which we...
Well, Parameshwari is very well known, and I love to play that rag again. Tilak Shyam, even Bairagi, which is known as Bairagi Bhairav, has been by me. And then Nat Bhairav also, which is so popular, sung by everyone. Very few people know. You know, that's the whole thing. Very few people know of what I have done. For instance, very few people know that the famous tune which is sung by everyone everywhere, Sare Jahan Se Acha, is by me. So
I didn't know it myself.
you see, so like that, you know, I have about 30, 40 ragas, out of which I would say 10 or 12 are very, very popular.
What are your memories of your brother, Uday Shankar?
Well, he was the first superstar that I ever knew in those days. People outside knew only Tagore, Gandhi and Shankar. Unfortunately, in our country now, if you ask any young people, they don't know the name Uday Shankar, which is a sad thing.
No, but do you think it is only because of the absence of archival records, or do you think that his work itself did not have the quality of survival?
I wouldn't say that, because what he did, what he created, the whole presentation on stage of doing a ballet, taking everything from Kathakali, from Bharatanatyam, from Manipuri, from Chau, and then taking from the source, that is to say Mahabalipuram, Ellora, Ajanta, Bagh caves. Being a painter, he saw movement in all those, you know, beautiful carvings. So he created a whole new style. But there are many students who are doing that, but the source has been forgotten.
The more time he spent abroad with his brother's troupe, the more he fell in love with India and his native Bengal. By the time he was 13, Ravi Shankar had read almost all of Rabindranath, Sharat Chandra and Bankim Chandra. He could also play by then the sitar and the israj and a little bit of the sarod. But dancing took up most of his time. At 16, he choreographed his first solo number for the stage. He admired Vishnu Das Shirali, one of the troupe's music directors and a fine sitarist. On his suggestion, Ravi Shankar decided to put in a stint as a student of the famous Inayat Khan of Calcutta. But typhoid struck before that and he had to be hospitalized. By the time he recovered fully, Alauddin Khan of Maihar Gharana had joined Uday Shankar's troupe, bringing along his son Ali Akbar, who was just 2 years younger than Ravi Shankar. It was Alauddin Khan, better known as Baba, who took Ravi Shankar under his wings eventually, weaned him away from dance and taught him the sitar. He became Ravi Shankar's guru and his father-in-law when Ravi Shankar married his daughter, the enormously talented Annapurna.
What would be your finest memories of Baba Alauddin Khan, from whom you learnt?
To me, he was someone very unique. He belonged to yesterday, absolutely, with all the principles, the austerity. He was at the same time, you know, a great musician, great teacher, and a great human being.
He played a variety of instruments, I'm told.
He could play anything. He had such a knack from the beginning. And not only could play, but he learned from different people on different instruments, vocal music, even different styles.
How many years did you spend in his Gurukul?
Well, I learned 1 year when he joined my brother Uday Shankar between 35 and 36, 1936. And then I finally went to him in Maihar, that remote village where he lived, for almost 7 years, continuously with him. And then for next 15 years, I used to go 2 months, 3 months every year. So it has been a long process.
How do you see the state of the Guru Shishya Parampara?
Well, it is gradually getting less. I won't say dying, but it has taken a different shape. Being in these cities, the Guru himself has difficulty in his way of life, and to keep students. I have been trying to follow that, like Baba did.
What happened to your famous Shishya, George Harrison?
Well, he's famous, all right, but I wouldn't say he's a great sitar player. You see, I love him very much, and he has a great respect for me. He's like a son, like a friend, all student combined together. But you know, he cannot give that much time for practice. But he has tremendous love and understanding for Indian music, Indian philosophy, religion, everything.
Tell me, what happened to the Ravi Shankar Center that you were planning to set up in Delhi?
Well, that's something which I have been trying and wanting to do. And it's impossible to do anything of that grandeur or without any help of government or any individual help. Some people who were in the government really showed interest, and I managed to get a land also. I wanted to have, say, anything between 10 to 15 special, very extraordinary talented young people to stay with me, just like the Gurukula ashram system, but having the modern way of teaching as much as possible, but have the same principle as the tradition. So that was, you see, that's one point. Gurukul means I have to be there, but according to the laws, the bureaucratic laws, they say you cannot live there. Institution is somewhere you cannot build a house. So these are points that we are still trying to overcome. I don't know whether it will be possible.
Surely that has not set a person like you back from doing what you wanted to do.
Well, as I said, I'm not a salesman and I couldn't do it, but my wife Sukanya has been helping me a lot since last 3-4 years, that since we have been married. And we were almost sure to get this. You know, I did this ballet, Ghanshyam, I wonder if you saw it.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
That's right.
And it was a great success. That was something which satisfied me, first time doing something in India. Because all my creative work mostly I have done outside India, where it was very much appreciated. And even this Ghanshyam first was commissioned by Birmingham Touring Opera Company. So we had about 15 shows in United Kingdom. And then I wanted to do it in India. Then we had so much of problem, but few little individual helps, also a little of government help made it possible. And we toured in Madras, Bombay, Delhi and Calcutta. It was a great success, but we could have done more.
How come we didn't see Ghanshyam on television?
Oh, that's a story which you see, Mr. Upendra, who was the minister that time, he liked it so much and it was all fixed. It will be shown. We even fixed all the artists to come to Delhi. Last moment, we got this news that part of the bureaucracy again, that it has the story as it is. You know, I wrote the story, did the choreography also, and the music, of course. It has something, story of almost 100 years ago, and story of an artist who gets drug addict and ruins his life, family life, friends, everything. Anyway, the story also has that he had attraction for his friend's wife, and after he dies, his spirit comes to her, on her, and she of course changes, voice changes, everything, and like, you know, and then they call a ojha, exorcist, to drive away the spirit. And ultimately it is driven but transferred to another who ultimately dies, which was the widow wife of the artist, Ghanshyam. So this was the main story, you know. So someone felt in the ministry that is showing superstition and all these things which was bad image of India.
Hopefully not adultery.
You know, that they didn't mind. but of course, it's the same sort of people, you know, many years ago. Do you remember? They wanted to stop Pathar Panchali.
That's right.
Going abroad because it showed poverty of India. The first great film that Satyajit Ray made.
That's right.
And I did
For
the
which
film.
you scored great music.
Yeah. Well, that's how it was stopped. So people didn't have chance to see it.
अबे बोल, अबे बोल, अबे कौन है तू? अबे कौन है तू? क्या भूत है? क्या प्रेत है? क्या परमदैत है तू? कौन मजहब का भूत है तू? यमराज का दूत है तू? मैं तो हूँ घनश्याम, मैं तो हूँ घनश्याम.
Ravi Shankar was one of India's first international citizens and a world celebrity. At the Bath Festival of 1966, he performed his first duet with Yehudi Menuhin. In 1967, on Human Rights Day, they played Rag Pilu together at the United Nations, and thus began the famous East-West encounter. The same year, he set up a school in Los Angeles, which became for an entire generation of young Americans a symbol of Indian culture. Even the Beatles turned up there to learn the sitar at his feet, making Ravi Shankar the great star that he became on the world music circuit. London, New York, Tokyo, wherever he went to teach and perform, fame and success chased him as ardently as his fans and his women. Kings and presidents fawned over him, awards pursued him, and so did the paparazzi.
Has love played a very important role in your life as well?
It has, it has.
And has that reflected itself in your work, in your music?
I'm sure it has to, because anyone who is creative, an artist, who is emotional, cannot be free from this urge of loving and being loved.
Why did, let's say, your first marriage break up? Did you fall out of love?
Well, not exactly. It had lot of different, she was, or she is still, a wonderful musician herself, and we had a wonderful time. We had only one son who unfortunately died.
Very recently, I believe.
He was about 50. He was a wonderful musician. He learned first from his mother, then he learned from me, and I helped him to come to States to study because he was also doing graphic arts.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So he kept up both, but then he almost left playing the sitar. And he got married and settled down. But then, you see, I brought him back since last about 7-8 years. So he again started practicing, working very hard. He was a wonderful player. But somehow, I don't know what happened. He was not taking good care of his health. And I tried my best, but being away, one can do only that much.
After that, after you had a string of relationships, after which you remarried.
Yeah, that I had. Many serious ones. I would say 3-4 very serious ones.
Did that kind of have their inputs into your creative experiments?
Absolutely. I always felt it was part of the whole energy that you have. You can put it, let me give an example, for instance. I have heard and known people who could channelize all their energy into their creative work only, like Tagore, for instance. Mm-hmm. He's one of the best examples that I know of. But it's very hard to do that, and especially when you have the opportunity and the way you travel, it's bound to have, different relationships.
But you're a very peripatetic man. You've been traveling all the time.
Living out of suitcases.
Which is home for you? Which city is home for you?
Up till now, I felt that I have home everywhere. I feel at home. I don't miss at all a home, because wherever I go, I feel, the people, I know them so well. I have such good friends. It is the people who count, it's not the place, I think.
You've done commercial film also in India.
With Rishikesh Mukherjee, Anuradha, and all that. And of course, I did 4 films with Ray. And then I have worked in many other Bengali films, of course, with Tapan Sinha, the Kapuliwala, which got Berlin Award for music.
Why have you, after the spectacular success of the musical scores that you wrote for some films, stopped scoring music for films?
2 reasons. Because I travel so widely all the time, people have been wanting to have me do the music for their films, but somehow they feel that, I'm not available. That's the main cause, which is unfortunate, because I love doing scores for films.
Do you watch MTV?
Sometimes, but lately I feel it has become very violent and very, too much of overdose of eroticism and violence.
Fame, success, romance, riches. Ravi Shankar has seen them all. He has also seen how fleeting they have all been. Today, in the autumn of his life, he is back where it all began. In India, where his roots are, where he wants to settle down. The pace has slackened now. Ravi Shankar is a sick, if somewhat tired and disillusioned man, trying very hard to sustain the old mystique. The only thing new about him now is his wife, Sukanya. She is his friend, companion, secretary, impresario. She is the one who holds his life together. Conservative critics still berate him for his wacky experiments with the muse, forgetting that were it not for such innovations, we would never have experienced his magical compositions for the Apu trilogy that Satyajit Ray filmed, Charlie, Chapkodek, Meera and Gandhi. Nor would Hindustani music have reached where it has today. No, it was not the defiling of a hoary tradition, as stick-in-the-mud pundits and jealous peers attack Ravi Shankar for. It was the opening up of our minds, the interaction of cultures, the creation of a richer and more exciting repertoire. What will Ravi Shankar be remembered as? A great sitarist in the classical tradition? Or as a ceaseless experimenter who spent his entire life innovating, challenging dogmas, pushing back the frontiers of creativity? Many times he succeeded, and yes, many times he failed. But there was always grandeur in that failure. The grandeur that makes a man a legend in his lifetime.
And that was Pandit Ravi Shankar, the maestro, a remarkable musician and an equally remarkable man.